Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson. Each week I'll be bringing you a self-care expert or a message to help you to discover how to live your best life and understand your mind-body connection. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let the Studio Chat begin. Hi guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Studio Chat episode. It's a very exciting episode. I'd like to introduce Sam Murray from Empowered Holistic Counselling and Wellness. And we're going to have a chat today about being your own health advocate and what a holistic health approach looks like. And it really ties in with the Studio Chat podcast, and what we're all about here is the mind-body connection and listening to yourself and wanting being your own health advocate. Before we do start, I do want to have a bit of a disclaimer in here that for those of you that know me, I do have a little 11-year-old dog called Maisie, and for some reason she has twigged on that I do podcasts now and I need silence, and that's not good with her. So I've actually got her under my desk and she is doing the deep breathing, so if you hear breathing or anything or collars shaking, that's definitely Maisie. But welcome everyone, and welcome Sam. It's really nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you and your listeners.
Yeah, we've spoken a couple of times, and it's really great to see how in sync we are, and just our different businesses that we've got do really tie in together quite well. So I'd really love everyone listening now to know a little bit about you. A little bit about Sam and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a business called Empowered Holistic Counselling and Wellness, and within that I deal predominantly with women looking to manage their health in terms of physical health, emotional health, mental health, and all the things that come along with it. So a large part of that is talk therapy, meditation, workshops, and just helping women find like-minded people and help them find their tribe. And this all came about from opening a couple of years ago after going through a significant health journey myself over most of my life, to be honest. But it kind of hit a big standstill in 2019 when I had my biggest endometriosis flare-up / complete burnout, which actually saw me in bed for up to 6 months, and realizing that I really needed to take a bit of a time out and really assess listening to my body and what that means and what that looks like and what I want my life to be moving forward. And that sort of led me to where I am today.
Wow, this is going to be a really exciting, juicy episode. And in there, I'm someone that I don't know much about endometriosis, to be honest, and I don't have it, but I'd love it for those listeners that are listening right now that do have it, or are like me, don't know what it is, but hey, we may have a sister, we may have an auntie, we may have I've got a mum, we may have women that we work with. So I think I'm so grateful that you've joined me today, because I want to spread this message about listening to your body. So can you share a little bit about endometriosis with my listeners and what it is, and just a bit about your dealings with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually the tissue similar to the lining of the uterus that grows outside of the uterus, and that causes pain, inflammation, in some cases dysfunction of organs, and infertility. So for me, I was one who got my period quite young at 10 years old. And at that time, it was a conversation that I'm just an early bloomer. And leading into particularly that early sort of teenage years, I found that the pain was really quite unbearable at times. And I was having time off school, or I was having to sit out of any activities or sporting activities. And again, it was sort of dismissed as, well, you're a teenage girl and sort of suck it up. It was very much that conversation. And I thought, well, none of my friends have to go through this. Maybe I'm weaker than them, or maybe I'm more sensitive, and sort of just pushed that to the side and tried to, soldier on as much as I could. And just over time, it got worse and worse the older I got. In my late teens, I was put on, actually mid-teens, I was put on contraceptions, I was put on the pill as a way to try to manage the heavy bleeding that I had and the length of my cycles, and of course the pain. To not much help at all, to be quite honest. I was constantly going to the doctors. I was one of those people going, something just doesn't feel right. I understand what you're saying and it makes sense, but the things you're giving me is not working, or something is being missed. And I was constantly told, some people just have bad periods. And, you know, try and exercise a bit more, try and lose a bit of weight, see how you go. And I thought, okay.
Wow. So. And who was saying this to you at the time?
This was GPs at the time, yeah.
And you would go to different ones?
Yeah, I would. I had a long-standing one, and I got to the point where I just felt like I wasn't being heard. So I thought, okay, now it's time for me to try someone else, maybe try a female doctor. And that's not that they were bad doctors. They were lovely doctors. I think even from their perspective, they really didn't have much of knowledge around what's normal and what's not for women's periods, unless it was something really, really significant. At the time, it was significant to me, but I was constantly being told that it's normal. So then you walk out going, oh, maybe it is me, and questioning your own sanity and your own, your gut instinct telling you that something's wrong. And it wasn't until my early 20s that I went to a different doctor and said, I have had enough. It impacted me throughout school. Now it's impacting my career. I was working in the city. I was, like bleeding through clothes at work. It was getting to a point where it was really sort of impacting my life. And it was only then in my early 20s, someone had said, oh, maybe we should send you to a gynecologist.
Oh, so after really getting a period at 10 years old, so it's a good 10 years of really, you knew something was up.
Yes.
But all these experts and all these professionals that you went to get help were like, no, it's just your period. It's going to be okay. So did you feel a little bit deflated? And
oh, definitely.
Yeah, and just think, is there something wrong with me? Is it all in my head? Am I imagining it?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time it was, well, this pill doesn't work for you, so let's just try a different brand. Take this for 6 months, and then if it's still not better, come back. And it was just that ongoing cycle. So I'm really grateful that GP I spoke to at the time said, maybe you need to go to a gynecologist, because I had breached that in conversations before, and I was told, well, you really don't need to. We just need to find the right pill. So we'll just keep going. So when this GP sent me to a gynecologist, I was like, oh my goodness, thank heavens, someone is listening to me. This is amazing. I had to go on a very long wait list. So it was all the anticipation and build up. Yeah. And I get to this gynecologist and she says, have you ever heard of endometriosis? And I thought, what the hell is that?
What is that?
Yeah, why has this never even been a part of the conversation? I don't know what this is. And so that in of itself, from 10 years old to I think I was maybe 23 then, was the first time it was even brought up with me. And she was great in the fact that she said, I think we need to go in and have surgery, because to do a laparoscopy where we actually go into your through your stomach, through, robotic procedure to actually see if you've got endometriosis, that's the only way you can diagnose it. I thought, wow. But at the same time, I'm like, oh my goodness, that means it's not anything sinister and I have an answer. This is going to be great. And it was sold to me as, once you find that you've got endometriosis and it's removed, you're good to go. This is the gold standard.
How good is that?
And I was like, oh, mate, I'm winning. I'm in the jackpot now. All of my answers, and fast forward to, I think it was 12 months later, after being on the wait list and stuffing around and all that sort of stuff, had the surgery, confirmed it was endometriosis, and you're sort of, hats off to you, good luck, and see you next time if anything changes. And I thought, oh, this is so great. And within 3 months, I was back at her door. Knock, knock, me again, still not doing so great.
Oh, and with the surgery, was that quite hard to recover from? Is it? I imagine it's keyhole, but how did you go coming out of surgery and recovering that for having surgery?
It was I was very scared in terms of the surgery because I'd never had surgery before. I never really broken a bone. I cracked a rib once, but that doesn't really count. So I thought, okay, so I've gone from 0 to 100 and I don't know what to expect, because by now I'd already didn't have a lot of trust in the health system, because when I've been told, oh, you're fine, you're being sensitive, I'm like, well, I'm the one in pain for, 7 days a week, in bed flat out. So when they said you bounce back from surgery pretty well, and I thought, we will see. I think the first doctor told me to have a week off work, and just make sure I'm walking around and take it easy, but generally you'll be fine. And to some degree that was the case. But just that overall conversation of what to expect in a surgery, some things that you can do to make that process easier, wasn't a conversation back then. So that's one thing I'm really grateful for social media for now, because fast forward, another 10 years, you can Google, your hospital bag to take in for a laparoscopy for endometriosis, and it will give you a whole list of things. So I love the fact that that is the case, but back then not so much. I somehow also managed to move house that week.
As you do, yes. Okay. So that would have been fun.
It was fun. Look, I had really my partner's really supportive, and he was really helpful, as were friends and family. But it just sort of reminded me of me and my mindset of just push forward, because we just have to get it done, and having this massive boom of energy to push through, and then completely falling to pieces afterwards because I've overdone it. And that's something I still definitely struggle with now, is trying to find that balance. But that's probably the first time where I went, yep, I just have to push through surgery, see how we go. And then as soon as I'd sort of moved house and got settled, I just felt rubbish for at least another week or two after that, which I think if I had known a little bit more about what to expect and what I can and can't do, it might have been a little bit easier. But we learn.
I know. And when you say push through, it's really interesting, because how we do one thing in our life is usually how we do everything else. When you say push through, it really took me back, because, you can take a lot on your plate and you push through. And, for me in my life too, I'll worry about it later. Like, I'm strong, I'll just push through. And you hear a lot of women time and time again just going, I'll do the thing, get it done. And that's why we will burn out or crumble later on, because we literally push through. And then as soon as whatever we're doing needs to be done, it's like we burn out and we crumble. And then we go, oh my gosh, we're not strong, we're very weak, there's something wrong with us. Oh my gosh.
It's because, well, from my point of view, I think we don't learn our tolerance levels. So we constantly exceed them, and then we set ourselves up for failure, and then we fall into this loop of, otherwise, exactly what you just said, I'm weak, why can't I do what everybody else does? But we just need to realize that we all have different tolerance levels. And once you find your tolerance level, it takes a lot of self-discipline, but you can make, no matter what you're going through, work for you, as opposed to this consistent boom and bust.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are. You had your surgery. You knocked on your doctor's door 3 months later and said, hey, lady, I'm still not feeling so great. So what happened there from there?
She said, oh, this is really odd. Okay, why don't we...
That's what you want to hear from a doctor. Oh, this is really odd. Awesome.
I was like, oh, usually after surgery, particularly, laparoscopic surgery for endometriosis, you recover quite well. So why don't we put you on a wait list for another surgery? Maybe some of it had been missed or grown back. Now, it was at this point I started to do some research and realize there's actually different types of endometriosis surgery. So there's something called excision surgery, where they actually cut right down to the root of the issue and remove it, as opposed to ablation, where they sort of burn the top off, which doesn't really get to the root cause, right?
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow, that's really good to know. So you didn't know this?
No.
Okay.
So I was going, okay, well, what kind of surgery would I be having? Because now I was a little bit more cluey and had a little bit more knowledge in my back pocket. And she said, oh, we did ablation. And I'm like, okay. That's a bit different. So is, excision surgery something that we need to look at? And she said, no, I think we might have missed some things. I do also have a history of getting cysts on my ovaries. So she said, why don't we drill some pockets in your ovaries, because that can help with this pain. And I thought, okay, well, this sort of makes sense what she's saying. And again, she's a health professional, and I'm a woman in my early 20s that I've never even heard of this or never even seen a gynecologist before, never really given much information about this topic. So I'm like, okay, if this is what you think. And she said, and then when we're in there, we'll put a Mirena in. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So she's like, right.
No one can, we're on video today, so we can see each other, just so people know. This whole time you've just been telling me this, I've been pulling faces, my head's been in my hands, because I have no medical background or anything like that, so we all know that. But to me, there's all these treating the symptoms, not the cause. So let's put a plaster on it. Yes. And the tone of, well, let's do another surgery, and we might have missed something. And then what really got me was, we'll just drill some holes in your ovaries. Is that what you said? And I was like, holy shit, what? And then we'll put a Mirena in. And it's like, oh, right, so there's a car crash and we're just going to put petrol on it, and then we're going to turn it and watch the flames go boom. That's, to me, what I'm hearing right now.
Yes, and this is one of the first times where I had actually gone against my gut instinct, because I thought, this does not sound right. However, I'm finally with a specialist who's listening to me and giving me solutions instead of dismissing me.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, all of my faith is in her. She's been recommended by a few different doctors when I'd kind of, sussed out the field. Okay, so I'm in good hands. She's not telling me to go away. She just said, okay, so it sounds like we need to do a slightly different approach. So fast forward, I have that surgery again. The recovery is not as great as the first one. I'm in quite a lot of pain afterwards, and I was bleeding quite heavily after the Mirena insertion. So it was, again, let it settle for 6 months. If there's any issues, come back after that. I'm like, okay. Again, within that time frame, knock, 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 me again. Hey.
You must have been just like, oh my God, is there something really wrong with me?
Yeah, I just thought, oh, come on, I don't know how much more of this I can take. So she said, oh, right. So the Mirena does take time to settle. So the bleeding will settle after a while. And I said, it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, it's a long time, and I bleed quite heavily, and I'm just not feeling any better. If anything, I'm getting worse. And I've had 2 surgeries telling me that I'll be, quote unquote, fixed after this. And now I'm feeling worse than before I walked in here. And she said, okay, so why don't we give it another 6 months and see how you go? And I thought, okay. And as I walked out of there, and I thought, yeah, I'm not coming back here, because I think we've hit a bit of a wall.
Great awareness, but yeah. I probably would have walked into the wall. I probably wouldn't have. That's probably what I would have done if that was me. Yeah.
And you fall back into this, well, now what? I don't know what else to do. I feel like I'd finally got told, this is the right solution. And the whole time my gut's going, alarm bells, danger, Bill Robinson, like something's off. And I thought, I don't know what else to do. So I ended up going back to my GP and just saying, this is the situation. Okay, let's try some other different pills on top of the Mirena and see if that works, which, highlight reel, it didn't. I got referred to a different specialist, but this time I had enough knowledge to go, okay, so maybe there's not a standard gynecologist. I need an endometriosis specialist.
And there is a thing. I wouldn't have known that there was a thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that either initially. So I thought, okay, so at least I'm, learning. And I was referred to my first endometriosis specialist, along a long list of them that I have seen since then. And the good thing was, when I got there, he said, you're absolutely right. You need an excision in terms of surgery. You may need a new Mirena. Sometimes they just don't agree well with you, but I actually think that is the best approach for you. And I have no idea why you've had your ovaries drilled. That doesn't make any sense. Soz about that. And he said, okay, so once you are ready to, why don't we go ahead and we will do surgery together, because I've not seen what's going on in there. I deal with this all day, every day. I'm the cream of the crop, I'm the person to be doing this. So I'm like, okay, again, a glimmer of hope. Someone's listening to me and they feel like they've got different approaches. This could be really good. Again, highlight reel, it wasn't very good. I had surgery. I still had issues. I was back there. Knock, knock, me again.
Yeah, 3 surgeries now from someone that's never had a surgery in her life. You're getting your badges. You're getting your gold star in surgery, right?
And it was getting to the point where I was having them, once annually in this sort of time frame. So it's all a lot very quickly.
Wow.
So we did try a lot of other medication after that, because I said, look, I understand that the surgery is meant to be gold standard, but I don't feel very gold right now. So what else can you offer me? Because my lifestyle and my health is now on a steady decline. It's really impacting work. And at this point, of course, it's always the way. My career's going up and my health is going down. I thought, this is going to be interesting.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's what a lot of people focus on, is the drive and chasing the career. Nothing wrong with that, guys. Nothing wrong with it. But when your health is your wealth, and once your health goes, it's so hard to get on top of it, but also affects, like you said, every area of your life.
Absolutely. And I'm focusing a little bit more on the reproductive side of things and the women's health side of things, but put periods aside, it has a significant impact on your entire body. There's inflammation, there's digestive issues, there's pain with sex, there's sleep issues, there's, it can bring along anxiety and depression and just chronic pain, waking up every day going, how am I going to feel today? So it's not just at that time of the month you feel a bit crappy and have to have a rest. It's a whole body inflammation disease, and it really impacts your entire life when it gets to this point, because by now looking back, not only was I ignoring my gut instinct, my whole body was inflamed. My nervous system was all out of whack. I'd hit chronic fatigue. My mood and my hormones were all over the shop, and my mental health was sort of wobbly at best.
I am not surprised. And I just want to touch on something that you said there. Because me too, I ignored my gut. I ignored that inner voice. Whatever you want to call it, that gut feeling that you just feel like it's a bit off, or you feel like the energy's off in a room, or whatever it is.
Yes.
What does your voice look like? Was it a gut feeling? Was it like a voice or something in your head that was like, this isn't right, Sam? Like, what was if you can kind of let other people know, because we all have different voices. So mine was, I get a feeling. So I pick up on energy, I get goosebumps, I feel funny in the tummy, and I just feel off.
Yeah, I think I have probably 2 key reactions. One is exactly that physical sense where I sort of feel unsafe in a safe situation. Yeah. And that's alarm bells to me. And that might feel like nausea. I might feel that my whole body sort of tenses up. I feel super aware of everything around me, because my body's going into search for danger, right? So it feels unsafe in a safe situation. And something feels unsettling about the energy around me. And then from the mental aspect, it's usually like, I hear what they're saying, but it doesn't sound right. But then, of course, you've got your own inner critic then argue, going, you're not a doctor, pipe down, listen to the professional. And it's sort of that going back and forth, arguing with yourself whilst your body has gone into this sort of stress response. That is how I know that my gut instinct is trying to tell me that something's not right.
And that's a beautiful way you've explained it, because clearly it's the mind-body connection.
Absolutely.
And so that was saying something, your mind was saying something, and I think we can hate on our bodies so much all the time when it's biofeedback. It's telling us something, but we push it. And then when there is something, we're like, oh, I hate you, my body. Like, I know there's been times where I'm like, are you serious? And I'm like, I need to flip that, I need to flip that story I'm telling myself, because I love my body. You're awesome. You've got me where I am today. what are you trying to tell me? And it's interesting
Yes.
to change that way of speaking to yourself. It's speaking to your body that it's actually trying to help you survive. It's actually trying to help you stop for a moment and just honor yourself and back yourself and go, okay, what do I need? What are you trying to tell me? Almost like you're talking to a little kid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what are you trying to tell me?
Absolutely. And I'm one that uses humor to get through difficult situations. So back then I was really starting to hate and resent my body, because I thought, why are you just not doing what you're meant to do? Just carry me from A to B without any issues, please. So when people could clearly see I was not well, they're like, oh, how are you going? And I would say things like, oh, my body's just trying to kill me, but I'm fine.
I love your sense of humor.
So, and I still do it now, but I also have the conversation with it, that I listen to it and I appreciate what it does for me. And considering how much it goes through, it still pumps blood through my body. It still allows me to function throughout the day, albeit sometimes not as great as others, but that's okay, because it's telling me that something is off and that I need to change things or slow down.
Yeah, okay. It's amazing. And so you saw the specialist and you did the gold star treatment, and then 6 months after you knocked on his door. Was it? Yeah, a dude?
At his door, yeah.
Yeah. And then where are we up to now? What's going on now?
So I went into 6 months of injections to put my body into menopause to see if that would help.
Oh, well, that would have been an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've just gone from 3 surgeries going, this is just gold standard, this is normal. And then all of a sudden I've skipped a little bit in the middle, and now we're doing menopause. Like we've skipped a whole 20, 30 years and now we're doing menopause.
And there's, been different sort of take these tablets and come back to me in 3 months and see how I feel. There's lots of that in between, but this one I want to call out in particular because this is, I think, again, a bit of a milestone for me in terms of listening to my body, and it doesn't always align with what the advice is given to me. And I thought, something is not right. So I went through 6 months of these injections, and throughout that, the whole idea was to see if it would stop me from bleeding, which then would stop my cycle, which would then stop my pain flare-ups, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, well, when you explain it like that, yes, it's extreme, but I was at the point where I was willing to do anything.
Surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. I was at my, one of my last straws. However, there was a whole packet after that I had to find. But at that point, I was like, okay, here we are. And so I was doing these injections and I was still bleeding through. I was still having pain. But now I had these really, really bad migraines. And the migraines would then give me really heavy nosebleeds, to the point where I'd have a blood clot come out to the palm of my hand. They were just insane. And there was a time that I remind one of my girlfriends about this every now and then. We have a laugh. We were having a coffee one day in this really nice area where I live, like the Mount Annie Botanical Gardens. I live not too far from there. There's a cafe in there. So just imagine this beautiful, nice, warm Saturday morning, having a coffee, catch up with your girlfriend. And as I sip my coffee cup and I put it down, my entire face is covered with blood. I've got blood clots all in my coffee cup. It's just started gushing. I've got the staff running out to me going, we're going to call an ambulance. And I was like, no, guys, this is just what happens at the moment. There's not much I can do. Everyone's fine. So here I am. I've got, gushing nosebleed like from a horror film, trying to calm everyone else down around me, going, it's okay. This is just what's happening. And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. This should not be happening, and I should not be putting up with this.
Not okay. Oh my God.
This is not okay. And anytime I brought it up with the specialist at the time, he said, oh, that's not from that. This medication doesn't do that. I said, well, I've never had nosebleeds or migraines to this extent before. Like it's only been since doing this program. And he was like, no. And I thought, okay.
Can I call bullshit on that a little bit?
Yes.
The medical profession side of things. Oh, no, it's not that. How defensive is that? And why couldn't that practitioner, doctor, whatever, get curious?
Yeah.
Oh, what, like actually just, again, what I'm hearing more than ever now is this particular guy, it doesn't matter, guy, girl, whoever it is, saying to you, oh, no, don't, like, no, like straight away defensive, not, well, let's look into this, or how are you feeling, or no concern for you and your thoughts and your voice. And if you're not weren't a strong person, definitely by now, your voice would definitely, it's hard to use your voice at the best of times. That you can be the most strongest person, but to go against, we see people at different levels of authority, and medical professions are one of them. And when you are sitting there thinking something's off, to use your voice has strength. But look at what you've just been through, and having the strength to still say it doesn't feel right, and having this doctor going, where, to be honest, most people would be like, oh, okay, and go back home and just take the medicines and just deal with this for the rest of their life. But you were strong enough to go, no, something's still not right.
Yeah, and the entire time I'm saying, well, I'm doing what you're telling me to do, and things are still not getting better. So now what? Because I feel like this is a Band-Aid approach, and I'm getting worse as we continue on. I'm getting worse. And at that point, I was really lucky. I've had a really supportive boss who would actually ask me lots of questions, more so than the doctors, just so he could understand. And he said, well, I've got daughters too, and I don't know anything about this. So he would be flexible. I started to work from home when I needed to. He would let me go to any appointments. So I was really well supported, plus my partner and my, family and friends were really supportive. So I'm very appreciative of that. I know a lot of people don't have that option. So it probably helped, well, it definitely helped for that, to me then have that strength to then stand up for myself, because I knew I had backing behind me of people going, this isn't right. I'm like, right? It's not right. I'm not going crazy. And they're like, no, this is odd. Surely this can't be the answer. And I was like, I know. Yeah. So yeah, I just, from there, I'll do a highlight reel from there until probably another, I'm going to say 6 years. I then tried to either manage things myself. I went to naturopaths, I went to acupuncture, I found different endometriosis specialists. But I think by then, the specialists still, unfortunately, and I'm traveling to, apparently the greatest people are towards the city, and I do not live near the city. So I was traveling distances to go into these fantastic specialists that cost an arm and a leg, that nothing's covered by health insurance, trying to find the money and the time to go to these people. And again, there were very much Band-Aid approaches. Going, okay, we'll take this and come back, but we're doing something different this time, remember, we're doing something different. So I'm like, okay, here we are. I'm going to listen to you, but I'm also going to do some of my own research, because I feel like I have to. I feel like I'm at that point where no matter what you tell me to do, I'm now probably skeptical and a bit jaded.
Yeah. Understatement. So how were you feeling right then? Can you remember now when you started to do your own research, and you're seeing these other specialists now, and you're doing all these other things, you're kind of creating a tool belt for yourself. Can you remember how you felt?
I felt, in terms of me doing my own research and finding, and this was at the time where things like Facebook support groups were just becoming a thing. There was more information around it, because at the time when I was first sort of looking up things like endometriosis, a lot of the information was actually incorrect. So now we're getting to the point where there was more access to this information. So I felt quite empowered within myself to go, right, I'm taking control of my health, and I will be deciding what happens from here on out. Unfortunately, at that time, my body had finally hit a bit of a crisis point, and it had been getting worse and worse still, where these sort of pain flare-ups, or, when my health was significantly declining, there was no pattern anymore. It didn't matter if I was on my menstrual cycle or not. It didn't matter what I was doing. It would just be a wake up with my fingers crossed and see what the day brought.
Gosh.
And again, by this point, I was in, my dream role. I was in a very good position in a corporate environment within media, working long, crazy hours, and had a lot of pressure on myself from, a really good position. And I thought, oh no, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And again, this is the part where, again, I go, I just need to push through. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I just need to push through. And I thought, well, I feel like I'm doing everything I possibly can. I've changed a lot of my food. I do all these complementary things. By now I'd found a pelvic physiotherapist, which has been one of the best things I've found for myself, and I still see her. I've been seeing her since 2018, and it's definitely one of the pieces of my toolkit that I will consistently stay with for an extended period of time, if not forever. So I was starting to do a bit of trial and error and finding the things that worked for me, because some things that worked for others didn't work for me, because every body is different. And whilst this is an actual common disease, 1 in 10 people, I think the stats now might even be 1 in 9 people have got endometriosis. Everyone responds to treatments differently. Everybody has different symptoms. So it's really difficult to treat. And I can fully appreciate that from a doctor's point of view, thinking, but I just saw 5 patients before you that this worked for. Why doesn't this work for you? So I understand that, but also I'm very much of, you should be taking a person-centered approach. And if I'm telling you something, you need to listen, because I'm the one that's living with it and this is my body. So I felt really confident in the fact that I was starting to find some things that worked for me, but I was still losing faith in the specialists I was seeing. And it all sort of came to a halt in 2019. Working too much. By now, I was at that point where I was running on fumes, and I just knew that when I felt good, I had to throw all of my energy to get as much done, because I never know when I'm going to go downhill. And then when I go downhill, it means that I need to either work from home, work from bed, try to catch up on some admin and take phone calls and do Zoom meetings, as opposed to being out and about. And as soon as that lifted a little bit, that pain fog lifted enough for me to go right back to it, I would dive straight back in. So I knew it wasn't sustainable. But at that point, I was just in that sort of, I'm steamrolling ahead going, I don't know how this is going to go. Unfortunately, by now, I was on very heavy painkillers to even get to that point. So the approach, even with the specialist, was, stay on top of your pain in terms of management. And that meant taking a lot of medication, a lot of painkillers, which then plays up with your gut health and your digestion and your sleep and your overall health. So I was starting to find that my anxiety was playing up. I found that when I was on the decline with my health, constantly being on that roller coaster, particularly, as soon as I saw it coming and I could feel that health, I'd go, oh, here we go again. And I'd fall into this sort of cloud of depression going, when's this going to end? And then it all come to a head, 2019. And I woke up one day and I couldn't move. My back had completely seized up. And I thought, oh, I've thrown my back out. I've hurt my back once before when I was a teenager, and it sort of felt like that, but this was just a bit next level. And I'm no gardener, but funnily enough, I was gardening the day before as a way to try and, do a bit of stress relief and do some things outside. And I thought, okay, I'll do a bit of gardening. So I thought, oh, I must have overdone it with the gardening. But no, what had happened, because I, went to physio, and they're like, no, you're just really tense. Like your muscles are just so switched on. You're in a, no wonder you're in a lot of pain, and you're also on a lot of painkillers. Like there's a big red flag here. And I said, I don't want to be on them. Like, get me off. If you've got something else, I'm happy to do it. Yeah. But something is off here. And it actually just continued from there, where I actually got into a really dark, deep depression. My menstrual cycle was all over the place. I was bleeding for up to 3 weeks at a time, very heavily. My pain was all over the place. I wasn't sleeping. I was delirious. I was very stressed. I still had work in the background, trying to manage both as much as I could, but failing miserably. So then I had that pressure of going, this work is building up. My voicemail is full. I'm getting 200 emails a day. People are constantly checking in on me going, are you okay? And my answer is no. But of course we don't say no. I just need a couple of days off. I'll be back when I feel better. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I was getting no answers and no support from my specialist at the time. My poor, physio, my pelvic physio was going, Sam, like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know anymore. I've just gotten to a point where I just don't know anymore. And this whole time my gut's going, hello. Hello. Yeah, remember me? You're ignoring me. Look what happens when you ignore me. So I was really fortunate enough to go to my local chemist one day, and because I'd been constantly on different medication for a good couple of years now, she had seen what was getting filled, and she could see me either coming in and getting them and seeing me decline, or not seeing me for large chunks of time and seeing my partner go in and her saying, "Is Sam okay?" And he's like, "Oh, not really. She's just so sick. She's in bed, like she can't get out." She's like, "This is not right. Like, something is not right." So I went up and got a script one day, and she said, "You look horrible."
Oh.
Like, well, thank you. How do you respond to that? I'm like, I know. And she said, "What is going on?" And I sort of, kind of dismissed it a little bit. No, she said no, and pulled me aside and said, "What's going on? Who are you seeing? What type of doctor are you seeing? What have you been diagnosed with? Because something's off." And I said, "I know something's off, but I hit a point where I really don't know what else to do." And she looked at the time, and she got a pen and paper and wrote down a doctor's number and said, "No, you're going to call this doctor. You're going to call him now and tell him I sent you." And I said, "What type of doctor is it?" She said, "He's an integrative GP. He's an integrative doctor. He deals a lot with stress and chronic fatigue and hormone imbalances, and he will try to help you, or at least refer you to people that I think might be able to help you, because you're getting worse." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she looked at me and she said, "Don't bother Googling him. He doesn't have much presence. Just call." So she already knew. She already knew. And I thought, okay. So I called up this place, who was only about half an hour from my house, which is really good.
Did you know what had you heard of that before?
No, I had no idea. I'm like, what am I getting myself into now? But again, I'm at the point where I'm like, I feel like I've done all the things I've been told to do, and I'm still not getting better, and my body's still, it's getting worse, and my mental health's getting worse, and my stress is just next level. And, well-meaning GPs, when I was there for doctor certificates for work and whatnot, were like, "Go on a holiday. You're really stressed. Just go on a holiday and unwind." I'm like, it doesn't really help me, but I understand what you're saying. So I rang this doctor, and they said, "Oh, there's a bit of a wait." And I said, "Such and such has sent me." And she goes, "Hang on a sec," put me on hold, come back and said, "Yep, we've got an appointment in 2 weeks." And he was one of the very first medical professionals who actually listened. My first appointment went for over an hour, and he asked absolutely everything. He let me talk. I took in a whole notebook with everything I've done or been on or how I'm feeling. And he said, "Pass me a book," and went through it line by line with me. And just having that experience was like, oh, there is hope. There is. And I said, I knew something was wrong. And he was like, "Yes, because your body is telling you that something's seriously wrong." So he was definitely all about that. And he was like, "Well done for getting this far. However, now we've got to undo a lot of hard work, because you're absolutely right. Your body is not coping. It's trying to send these signals to your brain to say, hey, something's wrong. Now something is majorly wrong. Now you're critically wrong. And we need to sort of get to the bottom of this." And he was very much explaining about root cause issues. And now, it was really nice to speak to a doctor who listened and said, "No, I agree with you." By then I'd started to wean myself off my medication and painkillers, because I felt I'm not feeling any better on them. This is not making me feel good. It makes me feel worse. I now don't eat. I'd put on about 20 kilos. It was just really bad. So he was like, "I actually like the approach you're doing, but we need to do it together. We need to be making some food changes together. We need to be, looking into your hormones together," and sort of explained more about endo in particular being more of inflammation. So he's like, "Well, so let's try and target things from an inflammation point of view and get your thyroid looked at. Look at all these different things that had never been brought to my attention before, even with research." So that was sort of the turning point of me going, oh, so that feeling is actually my intuition. So that feeling, now I'm like, it's all piecing together now. I knew it was there, but I didn't really understand the gravity of it. And I thought, okay, so, and then I started to explore a bit more. I think this is the point where I'm actually going to have a good medical team behind me. And that medical team will involve a whole range of different people. Whereas before, I probably had the so-called best of the best, but they weren't the best for me. And that's okay, because they're fantastic for certain other people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's really about me now being the voice for being your own health advocate in terms of diagnosis, being heard, working out what the management team and tools are for you in particular, and being empowered to make that decision about your own body.
And finding your people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so how does everything look today for you?
Yeah. So generally day to day, much better. It is still something that I have to manage. So like I said, I still see a lot of people in my team on a regular basis. So I do still go to pelvic physio, because I find that with the amount of chronic pelvic pain I have, my pelvic floor is overactive. So if you add any type of pain or cramps on top of that, it just kind of sets everything off. So we constantly do work together. I was seeing an exercise physio, and now do exercises at the gym that make me feel strong and, move those muscles, because movement is medicine, right? It's making sure that if I'm in pain, I don't sort of sit in a ball and crouch together, because then all of my muscles will get tightened. It's about changing food. So now I know what my food triggers are that causes inflammation, which would then make my pain worse when it came. So it's all of those different pieces of the puzzle. It's getting my hormones checked thoroughly every 6 to 12 months to see where I'm sort of at, because that's a good indication of where we're at. There's so many different things. And especially for me, definitely hands down, my biggest trigger is stress. And that's where I started to explore meditation. I started to reevaluate, going, okay, so I love my job and I love my career, but I think my body is trying to tell me that it doesn't align with me. It doesn't align with me. Some of the work I was doing doesn't align with my morals anymore. I just feel like I need to be in a different environment. And yes, it's a good learning curve. And I met so many amazing people and had so many fantastic experiences and opportunities. But I feel like for me, it's a big known stress to me. And if stress is my largest trigger, well, for me, unfortunately, is to take some time off, which I did. And just sort of gave myself that time and space to go, what do I really want to do? What am I good at? What do I like? And I'm in a fortunate position where I had the time to do that. I understand not everybody has that, but I think it was making sure I had I allowed myself that time to sort of sit and make that decision. And that led me towards going, well, I always wanted to help people, but see the direct impact. I always was interested in counselling and mental health, and I did a large aspect of the mental health support and psychological safety in my previous role. So it's not too far left field, but I knew that I wanted to definitely lean more on the mind-body connection, and went down the holistic counselling path, which is where I'm at now, implementing things like meditation and whatnot. And it's definitely been the biggest mindset shift for me, and then I can then pass that on to other people.
How amazing is that you've used your story, what you've been through. What a beautiful person you are, because you've used all that you've just been through. And I know anyone that is listening is thinking exactly like me. I'm looking at you now. You've got a beautiful smile on your face. You're beautiful. You're glowing. You look so happy. To go through all of that, I don't know how I don't think I could have been able to cope, to be honest. It's interesting when we can hear someone else's story, what they've been through, and you reflect and you think, oh my gosh, how amazing are you? And now you're working in something that fills you up. It's your purpose. It's something that when you work in the corporate world, there's a really big identity piece that you can really work, because you work so hard to get there. And I can really relate to that. And then when you actually get there, it's kind of like, for me, it felt like climbing the mountain, and I got to the top and I was like, Still, I don't know what I thought it would be when I got there, but I got there and I was like, well, this is crap. This is a bit shitty. But from you, how amazing that you've gone through all of this heartache and loss of like, why is my body not working, to push in. Hey, let's look at this. This has just come up for me. Push through. Yes, that's not a really good thing, but in this way, it's really served you. It's a beautiful trait of yours to, you've got the strength, I'm going to push through. Now, the other times when you push through, reflection's such an amazing thing, because you can look back and think, wow. But at the same time, that's your gift, and you've used the push through to literally push through this really difficult time in your life. We're not talking a couple of years. We're talking 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
That you've on for. And that's just a full credit to you. I'm just like, wow.
Thank you.
And now you're actually passing your gift, and you're passing on your knowledge, and you're passing on a space where you listen to people.
Yes.
And they feel heard and they feel seen. And you know how hard it is to use your voice to go, oh, I've got mental health, like I've got anxiety, I've got depression, or I've got painful periods, or I just don't feel right, I want to go see someone. What strength that takes to even think about that, to even action it. And the amount of times that you were like, no, it's not right, I'm going to find someone else, I'm going to fight. Like, that takes a special someone to have that strength to keep going.
Thank you. It's definitely been a very long road, and I would always give people the benefit of the doubt in the medical community, going, okay, I'm open and I'm willing to try things, but once I tried things, or I thought that didn't sound right, after trial and error, don't get me wrong, now I go, okay, maybe I might need to think about it and come back and answer, instead of being pressured in that environment to get the script and take it and do whatever you need to do. Now I'm like, okay, if I'm not too sure, I'll actually go, let me think about it. And if it doesn't sit right with me, meaning if afterwards I feel overly emotional in a negative sense, if I feel overwhelmed, if I feel deflated, if I don't feel heard, I'm like, no, this isn't for me. And that's okay. And it doesn't matter where, we're starting to get to the point where we encourage people to get, second or third opinions, but I think shouldn't be a number on it. You need to find people and your team and support actually as well that is suitable to you. And the latest update on me, which I haven't touched on yet, but just to give you an idea, is I've done so much work and my body's at a really good place right now, but it's still something I have to manage. And it was at that point going, I feel like I need to get another answer, because I still feel that whilst I've done so much, something is still not right. And I was lucky enough to find a different gynecologist specialist who deals with endometriosis, but also adenomyosis. And I have been given the markers for that, which means the only cure for that is actually a hysterectomy.
Can you explain? So I have heard of endo before, and I do struggle to say endometriosis. So sometimes I'll say endo. But what's this other thing that you've just mentioned?
I don't even know. I'm pretty sure I say it right. This is all a new space to me too. And it's sort of like it gets lumped in with endo sometimes, but they're actually completely different conditions. But the symptoms are crossover quite significantly. So adenomyosis.
Okay.
And the difference is with endo, it's the tissue that's similar to the lining of the uterus that grows outside the uterus into other parts of the body. Whereas adeno, it's the tissue that lines the uterus, so the endometrium, so the actual lining grows into the wall of your uterus.
Yeah.
Into the muscle. So that means anytime I'm bleeding from a cycle, it then bleeds into my uterus and causes inflammation and causes further issues. So this is, again, something I'd brought up with specialists over the years going, I've heard of this thing, I don't know too much of it, but the symptoms sound similar. Is this something that needs to be explored? And when I would have specialist ultrasounds, like, I can't really see anything, so no. And it was sort of dismissed. And I'm like, okay, no worries. But I thought, no, something is telling me I need to explore this a bit more. Yeah. And I went to specialist. She's done the ultrasound and said the only way that you can get a definite diagnosis for this is actually to have a hysterectomy and get your uterus removed and get it sent away for testing. However, we've got a lot of technology now, and if you've got a significant amount of the markers that indicate that, then it's very likely you have it. And I had 80% of the markers.
Okay.
So this year I'll be having a hysterectomy, which I'm very well aware may not impact my endometriosis, but if it takes a large aspect out of what I have to manage and deal with day to day, and for me it's a significant amount of bleeding, then I'm very much all for it.
And do you mind me asking, how old are you right now?
Yeah, I'm 33. So I'm 34 this year. I'm having my hysterectomy in June and I'm 34 in September. And that is a large part where I wasn't being heard or considered because I don't have children. I am in my 30s. And some of the specialists were open enough to say, yeah, but if you change your mind and we do a hysterectomy, you could sue me. So no, we're not, which, fair call to some degree, but I think it's still my decision. I've never wanted children. My partner's never wanted children. And I know that hysterectomy is not an answer for a lot of things. And it's a significant surgery and it completely changes your body. And even whilst I still don't want children, I'm well aware that I may have to go through a grief and loss cycle after that. But at the moment I was like, yes, but something is still off. And I feel like I've covered all avenues or quite a lot of avenues in terms of endo, but there's still a lot of symptoms that are unanswered for. And they sort of match this. So why aren't we looking at this?
Yeah. Such an interesting thing too, because, the world and society is a funny thing. I'm 41 without children, and it's interesting that people have really big opinions about this. And when you broached it up saying you were looking at having the surgery and you were almost dismissed that, no, you might change your mind. Again, you're not being heard. You're not being seen. You're not being listened. It's your body, your choice. And after you're not 16, you're not 18, you're a fully grown adult that's had years of this disease riddling your body. I think you get the right to choose. But also society as a whole is there's that whole period should be, if your period's painful and it's heavy or irregular, please go see someone.
Yes.
And please track your period, and don't just track your period. Track when you ovulate. Track when you have the slightest headache. Write down if you're moody. Write down, there's all these different markers with your period. It's not just when you wipe and you get your period and you go, I got my period, I've got PMS. Even the fact that you have PMS is not normal. That means that you're low in progesterone, and that can actually cause with stress, with hormones. The biggest trigger for hormones is stress, is the overarching. We all have stress in our life. That's how we live, but you can decrease that. But, ladies, if you're listening, or if you're a guy listening to this and you'll have a woman in your life that is getting her period, a period pain, not normal. Bleeding for more than a few days, not normal. Irregular, not normal. Being moody, not normal. Skin breakouts. So there's so many different markers that you can have that aren't normal. And also, what else was I going to say about that? No, it's gone now. I can't remember, but it's the amount of women that I know that just don't even track that. That's your biggest gut intuition thing, is just tracking what your period is like and what it's doing. But also, that's what I wanted to say, is how you get your period now. That cycle, how you feel, is going to change in 2 or 3 years' time, 5 years, 10 years. Your period is always going to look different, but we all dismiss it and ignore it, and we're not well educated at all. I was given no talk about the body or the human body or your period or whatever. And I just remember getting mine and feeling so embarrassed, and I cried, and I got no support. I got no help. I got no education about anything to do with that. So, I'm really blessed that I've met you, and it's really great that we can, build this relationship together too, to really help teen girls, mums, dads, anyone that needs to hear this, to know that, yes, it is a common thing. We get our periods, but don't dismiss it. Listen to your body, and know that just because it worked for one person, it won't work for the other person, but know that your body is constantly changing. And you can eat a food and it can be great, and the next time it can inflame your body. And I could have a diet that's full of dairy and gluten and sugar and be okay for now. I mean, that when I get to my 50s, that I'll be able to smash that chocolate bar or whatever. But it's different for you. You could not have, like, you know, this is why we need to be our own health advocate. This is why we need to start listening to, as children, we have intuition, we have a gut feeling, especially in my practice, we talk a lot about food and intuitive eating. And, you know, you notice a kid when they have their little tasty plate with their little cheeses and the cherry tomatoes, and they eat a little bit and they run and play with their friends, and parents are constantly, no, come back, you've got to finish your plate. That little guy or girl is really in tune with their intuition. They know when they've had enough milk when they're newborns, or they know when they've had enough. But as adults, when we get into primary school and as we get older, we disconnect from our intuition. And now you kept hearing your intuition calling, and we're just ignoring because we push through, we power, we push through. Who am I? I don't know anything. I tell you what, how amazing are you that you have backed yourself without knowing. You've backed yourself the entire time and used your voice to now help other women, inform people of the world, and be that support person for them.
Thank you. And like you said, one of the large aspects I even just start with now is covering all, how are you sleeping? How's your menstrual cycle? All that sort of stuff. And sometimes people go, that's a weird question. I'm like, no, because you need to understand it's all linked. And then even just that knowledge and understanding of, you know, the emotions and the sensations and where you hold stress in your body, to be able to recognize those signs, because sometimes we don't realize how stressed we are until we've passed that tolerance level that we spoke about before. So now it's sort of giving yourself that space and time to check in and go, okay, I hold a lot of stress in my shoulders. They're super tight today. So maybe I need to just, you know, take it easy, or figure out what are the triggers, what's happening that's making me feel like that. And that's a large piece where a lot of people are going, why don't we learn this stuff? Like, imagine if it was taught from a young age. Yeah, absolutely.
I know. Yeah, because when you learn all this stuff, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle, like you said, you piece everything together and you just go, oh, right. It goes back to when we're biologically created into this world, and we've got the same brain and the same body. And people hear me, I feel like a broken record because I say it every day, all day. And we've just this vessel, the same brain, the same body, but we're living in today. Today, all we know is we know how to move our body, we know how to sleep when the sun goes down, and we know how to eat and poop. We're very basic, but now we've got all these pressures on top of that, and we never listen to our body. So I'm not surprised that a lot of, you know, that the world is where it is today, but it is very simple stuff, isn't it?
It really is. And even when you start to explain all of this stuff, like, it's not anything brand new. It's not anything fantastical. It's really just back to basics.
And that's all it is. Yeah. I just think, thank you so much for, literally, this has just been such an informative, and I'm just really in awe of you, of just how you are committed to. It's fantastic you had the support around you, but also the fact that you didn't give up on yourself. Plenty of times when you're knocking on that door, you were like, okay, how? And I know that there would have been some really, you know, we all have times in our lives that, you know, you just think, how do I keep going? How do I push through?
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a theme for this podcast. So how do you push through? You can actually use pushing through to your advantage, and is a really good thing. But I just want to, I know this is only the start of things to come for us, and sharing with my listeners and my clients and everything about your story and about your education and how you live your life now. And you're just such a powerful force. And just thank you for being so honest and vulnerable and just sharing everything. I know that someone's going to be listening to this, and they will see someone with the hottie on their tummy and period pain. Hey, I listened to this podcast with Barbs and Sam, and go to your doctor. And guys, if you go to your doctor and they dismiss you, or like I take, my GP loves me, but I take questions in. Like she goes, right, what have you got for me today? And I'm like, well,
I love that. Yeah.
She probably thinks I'm a bit of a knob, but like, I don't give a shit anymore, because it's like I do my own research. I even do it for my dog. The vet gives me medication. I look it up and go back. I said, oh, I think she should be on 25 milligrams, not 50. And a lot of the time they look at me and go, oh. And the owner of the practice said, you'd be a good vet. And I said, no. But I've transferred how I am my own health advocate for my blooming dog. Like, just because someone gives you a medication, and I always have to ask the questions, and she was very sick recently, and I went in and I diagnosed her. So same with you, that you had your almost diagnosis, and you got, no, we can't see in the ultrasound. You're like, oh, you had 80% of the markers.
Yes.
Diagnosed yourself. And I do the same now in my life, and it's simple stuff.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on today. Now, if anyone's listening and they're like, wow, I really want to, I really want to get to know Sam more. I want to, see her in her counselling practice, or I just, want to learn more about her. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is empoweredholisticcounselling.com.au. I'm pretty active on social, so particularly Instagram. So it's empowered_holistic_counselling. And then I'm also on Facebook under Empowered Holistic Counselling.
I'm actually just going to chuck something in here. We haven't spoken about this, so I don't know if I'm going to, if we have to cut it out, we have to cut it out. But when I first got to know you, and you look at someone's socials and stuff, and I was like, man, this chick she's awesome. I was looking through everything, we get on so well. And then I'm a self-care advocate, right? Everyone knows that. And I love girly stuff, and I love caring for myself. And then this beautiful human being didn't even tell me. I managed to find that this has her own skincare range, guys. Like, she has created a whole new brand. So, like, this is how amazing she is. And I was looking at all this skincare, and it's all holistic, and it's all like stuff that I love. And I just messaged her and went, so you didn't even tell me that you've got this whole other business, and you've created your own holistic skincare.
Yes. And this was actually as a result of conversations I had with this integrative GP, because he was explaining things to me. And then again, I went away and did my own research and explaining, with hormonal imbalances, a lot of the things is just in our day-to-day lifestyles that we don't realize cause things called xenoestrogens. And I have the very common, unfortunately, condition where my estrogen is extremely high, but my progesterone is very low. So we were trying to determine ways that I can bring some of my estrogen down. And a lot of that was diet and stress related and whatnot. But he said, if you go away and research things like xenoestrogens, you'll find it in plastics, in skincare, in perfumes, it's in a lot of things that we don't realize. And if you are at that point where your body's very sensitive and it's absorbing all of that, your body's then making that into new estrogen, or it's mimicking estrogen. So your levels have gone sky high. And I just thought this was amazing. I'm like, how has no one ever mentioned this before? So I went down this path, and I was like, right, I'm going to try and find some skincare, because at the time, because I was so stressed, it was all over the shop. I wasn't looking after myself. My menstrual cycle was all over the shop. My skin was just in a constant battle with me too. I thought, right, I'm going to try some new skincares. And yeah, I just couldn't find one that worked for me that was in a range that I thought was an affordable bracket. So I'm like, what the hell?
You just developed. So guys, if you're listening to this, where can they find your skincare range?
Yeah, so it's Empowered Skincare. It's Empowered Skincare Range on Instagram and empoweredskincare.com.au.
How amazing is that? Well, thank you so much for spending a lovely morning with me in the studio, having a chat, everything about being your own health advocate, and listening to, I just resonate with you so much. Like, you're just listening to your gut. Yes. Like, be your own best friend. And just thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Oh, thank you so much for holding space for me and allowing me to share my story and some of my knowledge to your listeners and yourself. It's rare to find someone that you connect with very well. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
I love it. And I know we'll be talking many, many times. All right. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it has inspired you on your self-care journey. Please feel free to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcast. I really love hearing your feedback. So guys, please feel free to write a review on Apple and let me know which part of this episode resonated with you the most. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about Self-Care Studio or the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. Really look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Look after you, and I'll catch you soon. Bye!